What's up, folks? This is Justin from Books, Bricks, and Boards. Every once in a while, a game really catches me by surprise, such as happened with Tales of Argosa earlier this year. I had no expectations. The designer reached out to me and said, "Hey, you want to take a look?" Well, that happened again a couple of weeks ago, and I'm sure glad it did. I got an email from Son of Oak asking if I just wanted to take a look at this new upcoming game that they had. I'd not even heard of it at that point. I took a look and I really enjoyed it. So I did a little bit of research and turns out it was voted as the most anticipated RPG of 2025. How did I miss that? Well, does it live up to that hype? Well, we're going to find out as we explore Legend in the Mist. Before we get too far into the video, I just want to address something that's came up in the comments section a few times lately, and I think that it is easy enough to be mistaken, so I just want to explain how YouTube math works. So I've had a couple of commenters say that they should just start a YouTube channel so they get all these free books. Well, first off, I've only gotten 10 review copies in the 3 to 4 years that this channel has been up, so that's not that great a plan. And as far as how much money I'm going to make off this, it would not make sense. So let's do some YouTube math. So I got the free PDF for the Legend in the Mist. That was $29.99. Great. But to get it printed so that I could flip through it for you guys, that was 48 bucks. Yikes. Then I had to get a binder for it, another 25. Sleeves, that's 20. And if I paid myself, well, the minimum wage in my state is $15 an hour, so I spent between 8 and 12 hours preparing for this, so that's between $120 to $180. So I'm in the hole after counting the $29.99 free PDF. I rounded it up to 30. I'm in the hole $183 to $243 when you account for my time. Without accounting for my time, I'm negative 63 before. This is a labor of love, folks. I don't think many dungeon tubers are making money on this, but I can assure you I'm not one of them if they are. If you do enjoy the content, please be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe. And if you want to impact the equation I just discussed, consider a membership. Every little bit helps to offset the YouTube math. With that out of the way, on with the show. A little while ago, I got an email from Son of Oak Studios, but it was not an ad for their most recent projects. Rather, it was a request. Would I be interested in reviewing their upcoming crowd-funded game Legend in the Mist? To be honest, I had not at that point ever heard of Legend in the Mist. Between life's obligations and the immense volume of game-related news out there, this one slipped by me. A better metaphor might be that it flew past me like a wild thing fastball. That said, I am very familiar with Son of Oak's first big project, as I own a significant portion of the City of Mist catalog. With that game, I found it to be the most intriguing concept for a game, and yet I never found the right mix of players to run it. Being a detective game, it isn't exactly a straightforward solo experience either. So while I learned City of Mist and pored over the material, I never got it to the table. Without even playing that other game, Son of Oak had earned my attention. Mechanically, City of Mist was a brilliant mix of Fate's tags and Powered by the Apocalypse's resolutions, accompanied by a well-written setting and art that told a story. When I saw Mist in the title of Legend in the Mist, I was very hopeful this would be a version of the City of Mist engine that I could get to the table. As I read a bit more, I realized just how out of the loop I had been on Legend in the Mist, as it had been dubbed the most anticipated RPG of the year by EN World, beating out heavy hitters like Daggerheart, Drawsteel, and others. Moreover, the new game was described as rustic fantasy, think Lord of the Rings, making it an easier sell to potential players than a neo-noir detective supers game. But beyond that, because of the simple tag-based characters and universal Powered by the Apocalypse resolution mechanic, With almost no effort, you can do anything you can describe with this game. It is only limited by your power of language. After a quick search and a playthrough of the free solo starter game comic, I let them know I was not only interested, but I was pretty excited to discuss their new project. With a Kickstarter goal of $50,000 and a campaign of $855,686, clearly I was not alone in my excitement. There is a lot of build-up, but does it live up to the hype? Let's find out. How does it play? Upon my first play of the introductory comic book solo game, I could see that there was much more than a passing nod to City of Mist, and that's a good thing. If you aren't familiar with that game's mechanics, here's the gist of it and Legend in the Mist. The basic gameplay loop is for the narrator to establish a scene describing the situation as well as any threats or obstacles, then allowing players to decide how to proceed. The resolution will be either narrator fiat for those minor tasks, such as we enter the tavern, to simple rolls with a quick resolution, for example, I negotiate a better price for a room from the innkeeper, to more complex resolutions for very important or complex tasks, such as I challenge the tavern bully to an arm wrestling contest, trying to inflict the humiliated status on him. In any dice roll, the mechanics are player-facing with the Powered by the Apocalypse 2d6 roll, plus any relevant tags. If my hero in the prior example had the tags Strongman, Incredible Grip, and Up for a Challenge, I would add 1 to the roll for each appropriate tag. Any negative status effects relevant to the action are likewise subtracted from the roll. The net of the tags added and the statuses subtracted determine the power of the action. Aside from being the modifier to the 2d6 roll, the power determines the level of the effect for the success and can be spent for effects like keeping the spotlight, which is their term for maintaining control of the scene. After all mods, if the final 2d6 roll is totaling 10 plus, it's an absolute success. You get what you want, no consequences. If you got 7 to 9, you get what you want, but with appropriate consequences, such as an enemy stabbing you after your attack, for example, maybe inflicting a wounded 2 status. At 6 or less, the action just fails, providing consequences but no benefit. These consequences can be narrative, mechanical, or a mix of both, and the core book does a nice job suggesting appropriate consequences for each action. This was a big upgrade from City of Mist for me, where I was admittedly unsure of what consequences matched each action. In a game where rather than hit points, any word you can imagine could be a wounded condition level, it can be a bit intimidating to feel confident in one's choices. Legend in the Mist provides better examples and suggestions, and they went another step beyond with the Action Grimoire, which is 103 pages of detailed sample tasks with corresponding menus of appropriate effects and consequences for each, giving an unbelievably deep dive into what the designers had in mind for the system, but still leaving it open enough to do your own thing. This is a creative player's dream. That is the way actions are resolved in Legend in the Mist, but once you understand how characters are built, everything will make a bit more sense. Heroes in Legend in the Mist are made up of 4 theme cards, a backpack card, and a hero card, as well as whatever status cards they accumulate along the way. The theme cards are probably the most important to gameplay, each one starting with a broad statement, which is a tag, then a couple more related power tags, a weakness tag, which counts against your power, but is tallied to improve the theme over time, and a quest related to that theme, which, when followed, will lead to major advancements to the theme, or when abandoned, can lead to new theme cards giving a different route. This was another big improvement over City of Mist, as I can clearly understand the advancement process here, where it was much more opaque to me in the prior outing. The themes can represent a hero's personality, skills, circumstances, allies, resources, history, or really anything that you can imagine. The default themes are typically origin themes, but as you pursue their destinies, heroes can develop stronger adventure level themes or the most powerful greatness themes. With each level of theme, there is an automatic +3 power modifier prior to adding tags, which allows scalability between characters of different power levels, like Frodo to Gandalf, for example. Lest you think this will make the game too easy, the enemies and obstacles also scale to these higher levels. One tool heroes have to overcome such a potential disparity is to burn a tag. In doing so, adding +3 instead of +1, but losing access to the tag until it narratively makes sense to regain it. For example, if I burn strong as an ox to perform a feat of strength, perhaps I pulled a muscle and need to rest to regain it. It all works very well and encourages creative play and descriptive imagery. Having brought up enemies, I should let you know the core narrator book has 81 pages of them, as well as rules to make your own, and another 13 pages of undertakings and vignettes to challenge heroes on their journeys. Each of the adversaries are a simple list of limits. Think hit points for various conflict approaches. There are also tags and statuses and potential consequences associated with them. There are also journey landscape challenges, which describe the sorts of environmental challenges that we see in our favorite works of fiction, but we often leave out of our games to avoid fiddly rules to remember. With a single resolution mechanic, Legend in the Mist does not struggle to represent these well. I will show some of the challenges in my flip-through later in the video, but suffice it to say, there is a great variety to cover your needs. The book also has an 18-page adventure, The Heap Thing at Skunk Glen, which serves as a nice demonstration of how an adventure works in the system, which was detailed thoroughly in an earlier chapter on designing adventures, one of the best GM advice chapters in recent memory. But better than adventure design advice or a sample adventure, Legend in the Mist has an 18-page oracle for solo play, or more accurately, more than 8 oracles for solo play. Reading through their solo rules, I would not have been surprised to see Sean Tompkin in the credits. He's not there. It is that good. These tools have the yes-no, interpretive context oracles, and mission creation related oracles that you would expect. But beyond the expected, a separate completely random consequence oracle, story related revelation oracles, and a very handy summary of the full threat list from earlier in the book. Moreover, they reference the solo mode throughout the rest of the rules, noting important differences such as suggested changes for character creation. While some may be disappointed it isn't more of the beautiful Choose Your Own Adventure comic presentation, what is here is a fantastic demonstration of what a solo mode can and probably should be, beyond the core. So far, I have really just discussed the core books, but Son of Oak has a lot more to offer through the Kickstarter. Of those, I will start with the Action Grimoire, which I mentioned earlier, mainly because I have a copy of it. This 103-page reference material covers everything from attending a festival to conjuring spirits, from disappearing to farming vegetables. With dozens of examples and a system receptive to reskinning those examples, I can't imagine a task that can't be recreated accurately with the existing tools. Don't misunderstand, the examples in the core game are great and sufficient, but this just gives you a plethora of options with variations on every one. Beyond that, we also get a setting book, The Hearts of Ravensdale, a GM screen, custom dice, and more. If someone really splurged, there were also leather-bound copies, which I am sure will be absolutely beautiful. While I don't have any of those physical products, I can say from the quality of the PDFs and the quality of the physical City of Mist products that I would be surprised if they were anything less than stunning. As an aside, once physical copies are released, I will revisit this video covering any of those that Son of Oak sends me, so if you want to see that, stay tuned. Flip-Thru review. As I mentioned earlier, I actually printed my PDF out so I could do a little flip-through for you guys. Now, the image quality isn't going to be great because I did a black and white print because I didn't want to spend a fortune on this. That said, you can see by the volume here, there's a lot of material. Between the Action Grimoire and the core rulebooks, there's near 600 pages of content. Before I get to the flip-through though, I want to show a few of the important pages. So this game is a game that is simple enough that I could play it with just the in a nutshell pages. 2 pages from the core rule books gives me all the basics that I need to play this game. That is a design win for me. I mentioned tags earlier and statuses. Well, these are from the book, but these tags here are actually statuses because you can go from 1 to 6. 5 on a negative status would indicate that you've been knocked out or otherwise incapacitated. Maybe if you were humiliated 5, you were beside yourself and you just had to leave the area and go collect yourself. If you get to 6, you are either dead or you are transformed in some way. But they could also be just wounded 2 or stunned 4. These other tag indicators here could be anything. It could be favorable position, or it could be cold air. Anything that you use to describe the scene could become a tag. On the back here, I have all of the different challenges from the core rulebook, and it has the page number they're on, so I don't have to flip around endlessly looking for what I need. Regarding the character sheet, this is your hero card, and on it you would keep your fellowship, which I didn't talk about much, but you create not just a single hero, unless you're playing true solo, which you can, but you create a fellowship and you have ties and bonds that give you extra tags that you can use as a group. The hero card is where you can place some of your equipment, which act as tags, and you can add them to your rolls if they're relevant. And then quintessessences, hopefully I pronounced that right, are one of the major ways that you can develop your character in powerful new directions. You list your companions and individual tags that you have with them there. You track the quests for your fellowship there. And that's pretty much the character sheet. But you're also going to have your theme cards that I mentioned earlier. Like maybe we'd mention this as strong as an ox, and then we would put the largest biceps in the world right there. And so each one of those is a tag, strong as an ox being the theme tag, and then the largest biceps in the world being a power tag. And you can count each of those when you are performing actions where they would be relevant. You will notice the 3 symbols at the top. Those represent the origin, adventuring, and greatness themes. Those are how you determine the power level. At the bottom here, you have your quest for the theme card. You can abandon it, you can improve it, or you can get a milestone. You improve your theme card by invoking the negative theme, or the negative tags rather, that are associated with it. After 3, you get to improve it, which can involve adding power tags. If you don't follow your quest, then you are considered to have abandoned it. So you mark an abandon. Once you have 3, you throw away that theme and get a different one. Or if you do complete aspects of your quest, you mark milestone, and when you get 3 of those, you basically transform your theme card into a greater version of what it was before. And really, with just 4 sheets of paper, I have what I need to play the game. But Justin, why did you print out 600 pages then? Well, part of it is because I love you guys. But the other part is, there are some great examples in here, and it's an awesome reference tool. The action grimoire here that I have at the front is particularly good. And let me see if I can zoom in a little bit on that. That is what the action grimoire is going to cover. There are sections on crafting, battle, cunning, exploration and survival, magic, and social interaction. And at the back, there's a nice index. just to give you an example of a random action and how it looks. Let's say we want to do a little bit of farming. So it gives you an example of the different things that this action could entail. Growing a vegetable garden, raising livestock, harvesting an orchard, building a pen, milking cows, growing a shallow water barnacle farm, sowing and reaping, digging a mine, prospecting a river rich in ore, excavating precious fossils. It gives you an idea of some of the different things you can do with that. Then it tells you what different kind of tags could be used to increase your power and what tags might impede your success. Then it also goes into what success might look like if you get it with this action. Different ways that you can use your power to create the effects in the game. Also, it gives you what consequences would be appropriate if you had some while you were attempting that kind of an action, which is a very detailed way to look at a system which is going to be quite different than what you are accustomed to with most games. I am just now realizing on the right page, you're not going to see much at all because of the lights shining. I apologize for that, but it is what it is. So let's flip through and go to the proper core books. By the way, all this that I'm flipping through right here is all index for the Action Grimoire. So the core book is broken up in 2 volumes. There is the hero book and the narrator book. The hero book is obviously for the player, while the narrator book is going to be for the game master. And as we flip here, let's see if we can get a angle where you can actually read. Yeah, there we go. So here is the table of contents for the hero book. You get a tutorial, which is fantastic and available for free. Check the link in my resources thread and my Discord server for that. There is the introduction, the makings of a hero, which is hero creation, how to play, the secrets of magic, which are quite detailed, and then there are the appendices. The appendices in this particular volume involve showing what all of the different terms mean primarily. So let's flip through. I'm going to show you a little bit of that introductory tutorial. Given this is black and white, in reality it is very much in color and it's beautiful, but it kind of slowly introduces concepts of the game. It goes through simple actions, detailed actions, and complex actions. It kind of points you to what different tags might be particularly useful in a situation and gives you an idea of how burning tags might work and just how the resolution process goes. It really is a pretty slick way to teach the game. I actually reached out to Son of Oak and asked them if they had plans for a larger volume solo adventure that would be set up in a similar manner, because I like this one so much. I don't think they have that on the plans yet, but, you know, if they hear back from us and people tell them, yes, we want that, they might be willing to take a look at that. I'm sure this was quite expensive to produce because of all the art involved. Okay, so now we are into the proper book. It has what you would expect as far as telling you what an RPG is, and then it will go into why this is different. There's a great line here. There are no stats, only tags. And that's because you're not going to have a strength stat, you're not going to have dexterity, you're not going to have a level. Everything is just a word, which, when you use your language, can be either relevant or irrelevant to the situation at hand. You add those up, that's your mods. So let's go to, there's the nutshell 2-page rules summary that I printed off earlier. Again, sorry it doesn't really come through on the camera that well. Let me go to some of the themes. So there are several different ways to create characters in Legend in the Mist. There are some tropes that you can use, which will basically give you some theme cards that you're going to want to use and some options to fill them out. So, for example, you could be a conjurer of flames. But you could also just choose theme cards that work for you, or you can answer questionnaires. So these theme books have a series of questions, and by answering these questions, it determines what the tags you put down on the theme card will be. And there's also ideas for what your quest would be for that theme card as well, down here at the bottom. And then whenever you get to the theme kits, it kind of tells you from this theme book what a different stereotypical character in that would be. So a circumstance-based theme book could be an alder person, a fugitive, a hardworking drudge, a landed noble, an outcast, a tavern brawler, but they can also be whatever you want. There are theme books based upon your race. There's ones based upon what you own. There are ones based upon your history, and so on and so forth. There is a lot of guidance here. For a game that is so incredibly deep and varied, having examples is huge. There is a nice section called the General Store, which gives some examples of different items, because you get one item to put in your backpack when you're creating your character, and that item is going to be a tag that you can use when it comes up. So there's some ideas of how that works. Especially interesting to me was the way that they looked at armor, as the armor was not easily adapted to a tag system. So the word plate mail and the word leather is still the same one word, so you get 1 point either way. So it talked about how tables might want to use that differently. I didn't find where it goes into much detail on how that might work, but the way I thought I would do it is, if a player has leather armor, then it's the +1 as normal. And leather armor is very rarely going to be a negative tag because it's not as restrictive as, say, plate mail. Plate mail, if you're trying to sneak, I'm going to use that as a negative tag. But the benefit to plate mail, in my opinion, is I'm going to allow you to burn plate mail for +3 points, and you can get it back with just a little bit of repair after the battle. Whereas if you burn your leather armor, you're going to have to get some new leather because it's got holes in it, and that just won't do. But you can do that your way. In fact, if you've got some ideas, tell me about it in the comments. So the examples in the book for how to do actions and how to count power and how to spend that power are all really detailed. I think that you're going to find that despite the fact this game is unlike any game that you've played, it is going to teach very well. I don't think you're going to struggle to learn it, and I don't think you're going to struggle to teach it either. I'm going to flip over now to well, I guess I will stop on magic for a minute. I was going to flip over to the narrator book, but the magic section has several different schools of magic, as it were. You can be like part Fey, you can have runic magic, but each one goes into detail how that magic would work, what the action would look like, what the tags look like, what some of the potential obstacles for that type of magic would look like. So those are all there, and you can find something that will match anything you're looking to do. One of the things that you might find surprising is things like werewolf form are going to be in the magic section, not in the regular theme kits. So let me flip to book 2, the narrator section here. So we've got the narrator book, and let's see if we can get that where you can see it a little bit better. Zoom in, and this is the table of contents for the narrator book. It's got an introduction, it's got the narrator's role, creating sessions. The series on creating adventures I thought was really cool. They have the crossroads method and I believe it's called the mountain method, but basically it's building up or it's branching out, and that's different ways that you can build your adventure scenarios. And it has special notes in there for how to do that for solo play as well. The heap thing of Skunk Glen is the adventure, the sample adventure. And one of the really nice things I didn't mention in the earlier part about that adventure is it explains how to use that pre-written adventure for solo play, and it enables that by marking clearly what you should and shouldn't read ahead if you're playing solo. I thought that was a nice touch. And then at the end, there's the huge oracle section. So I am going to flip through this a little bit. Kind of explains to you what you should do to establish a theme. I thought that the nice section here on what some sample tags were for creating a scene, that would be good for a new game master that is struggling with his words and needs to come up with a way to describe a scene. A nice section on consequences and explaining that it's not just mechanical consequences that matter. Nice section on rewards. So that's another thing too. You might think that the character creation process is a little bit restrictive with just the simple theme cards and whatnot, but actually whenever you look at the ways you can make story theme cards, so you could have maybe a sword, maybe we're going to make Excalibur, so the theme card name is going to be Excalibur, that's one tag, and then Magically Sharp would be another tag, and Sword of Legend would be a third tag. So you could invoke all of those tags anytime it made sense when you were using Excalibur. But the theme card will also have a negative tag that will affect that as well. Like maybe it's heavily sought out. So anytime that the GM decided that they needed to invoke that, or the player wanted to invoke that, they could do so as a negative power tag. So there's that as well. It really is a pretty incredibly deep system for that kind of building. The nice thing about the whole theme and tag system is that everything works on multiple levels. Everything is establishing a truth about the world. All the tags are establishing a truth about the world, but they are also mechanically impacting the world by being added when relevant. And then also they're driving the story because each theme has a quest associated with it. So it's really working on 3 different levels at the same time, which is just good game design. Here's a nice section on companions if you wanted to do a little in-depth companion here. So maybe we were looking at Bill, the pony for Sam in The Lord of the Rings. So he could call that his trusty horse. That's one tag. Come when called, that's another tag. Gallop hard is another tag. But then a negative power tag would be needs feeding. So those are how the story theme cards would work. Here's that section on designing adventures I was talking about. And let's see if we can get to, yeah, the mountain. So no, this is not the guy from Game of Thrones. This is just explaining how you kind of layer your adventure to get to the end point. And it just gives you a good template to come up with a story that's going to hook in your players and keep them interested. The other method is the crossroads that I talked about earlier, and it gives an example mountain. It also gives an example crossroads adventure too. But let's flip a little bit further. There's the crossroads. It talks a lot about magic, how magic works. It's going to be different in different campaigns. Now we're on to the challenges. So I do want to stop here for just a second to give you an idea of how these stat blocks work. So you have these limits right here. I don't know if you can see that, but the limits for a commoner would be harm 1, meaning you could beat them up. Convince 1 means you can persuade them. Or scare 1, which means you can intimidate them. So those are different ways that you can defeat or overcome that obstacle. Which then on the other side, you have different consequences and threats associated with that adversary, and gives you a way to interact with them. All of the different obstacles and threats are the same. They give you these different ways to interact with the world and set up the story. Let's get to a little bit more interesting one. They are broken up into different types of terrain too, which is a nice callback for longtime D&D players. So let's look here. I want to find the dragon. I think he was in the back. Well, here, we'll just do the immortal vampire. So, if we are fighting the immortal vampire, we have limits of harm 4, convince 4, and scare 6. He also has a greatness tag that he has inhuman prowess and magnetism. So that's going to raise him 2 effective power levels, giving him a +6 on everything that he can invoke that aspect versus a regular human. For his threats and consequences, he can beguile, he can hunt, and he can feed. And beneath that, it gives different consequences that you can inflict. So you could do crushed 3 or woozy 3. You can also block different actions with the vampire here. So that's kind of how a different threat would work. Okay, now I'm going to get to the part that I'm really excited about. I'm skipping the adventure altogether because you may want to play that, and I don't want to ruin it for you. So I'm going to flip past all of the great backers. I was not one. Should have been. I'm going to go to the Oracle. This is the solo play section. This starts on page 238. And it goes all the way back keep going to 256. And you get all these great different consequence tables, action tables, revelation tables, and there's a nice section on the AI for different types of enemies. Enemies are identified as influences or mysteries or pursuers or quarry or sappers, aggressors, and there are D6 tables that tells you like how they will interact with the group so that the GM, or in the solo case, you as the player, know how they are interacting with you. That's a very cool addition that's left out in most solo play experiences, and I dig it. I really, really like the solo play in this game. And that is my very haphazard flip-through of 600 pages of material for Legend in the Mist. And as you can see, there is a lot here. It's a simple game, but it's also a deep game. Simple to learn, but also offers a lot for somebody that wants to invest their time or their group's time in playing it. I think that as a solo player, this could be a lifestyle RPG. This could be one that you could play really any setting with, and you're not going to have to know rules really for the setting beyond the story. Your tags for a Dark Sun game will determine how it works mechanically. Your tags for a Dragonlance game will determine how it works mechanically. You don't have to have a separate set of rules for every story, and that's fantastic. Character creation. I did a poll on the channel last week about what kind of character you would like to see me make with the system, and as far as how you want me to go through that process. And you guys chose the questionnaire method. So I needed some inspiration. I picked up my old Super Dungeon Explorer Golem model here, and I decided that I was going to make a character based on him. And so as I'm making my choices, I'm going to do it with just this as what is going to draw me into that process. So you start with your hero card, and it says you start with a name. And I think I am actually going to say that he is the Nameless. And I think that's going to be part of his background, is he doesn't know where he came from. He doesn't know anything about his origins. All he has for clues are those things that he has on him. And so that's going to be his story, is trying to discover who created him, what he was, and what these different things that he carries with them means. I'm not going to create a fellowship. I'm going to do this as a true solo. And for my backpack item, I'm going to put a shield. I'm not going to choose the sword because I'm going to use a theme card for that, because I think it's a little bit more important. We won't have any fellowship relationships or quintessences. Hopefully I got that right. And so that's the total need for this sheet. So we're going to go on to the theme cards. And I have picked which theme cards I'm going to use, but then I will fill them out with you guys here on camera. So I chose Uncanny Being because he's a golem. And I chose Possessions because that's going to be his sword. I chose a Companion as a theme card because as a solo I wanted to have somebody to interact with. And I chose a trait of Legendary Focus. Now I went with 3 origin level theme cards. Those are the basic ones. And I went with 1 adventuring. So he's going to get a +3 to anything that involves his being a golem. Anything where I can reference one of the power tags here is going to be a great way to get a +3 bonus. So let's start off with the questionnaire for Uncanny Being. So you start off with, what manner of fantastical being are you? And I've got that here with the top answer. That's my theme tag. That's Gollum. And then I just choose 2 power tag questions to go along with that. Some of the different ones. What can you do that a human being could never do? What other magic or supernatural ability do you possess? What unusual shape, feature, or trait do you have or can assume? What do you know or sense that mundane beings cannot? How do you gain sustenance, draw strength, or recover? What aura, miasma, or other unique essence do you have or exude? What is your natural or preferred habitat, territory, or range? And who is a common ally or prey to creatures such as you? What does your kind interact with mortal and, or how does your kind interact with mortal and mundane beings? So I think I'm definitely going to do D, which is what unusual shape, feature, or trait do you have or can assume? And I'm going to say that bulky metal form. So anytime that I do something that I could benefit from my bulky metal form, then I'm going to be able to add 1 for that tag. And then I get 1 more of these power tags to go along with this. And I'm going to say, how do you gain sustenance, draw strength, or recover? And I think I'm going to say steam powered. I think he's got a furnace inside of him. And so any time that that furnace could come into play, maybe I burn extra hot whenever I want to do something that requires extra power. Well, then I just say that I'm steam powered. Now I have to choose a weakness tag. My choices there: what repels or harms your kind? How can mortal creatures bind or manipulate you? What is a shortcoming of your physical or magical nature? Who hunts or antagonizes you? Ooh, I like the last one because I think that leads into the quest. So I'm going to say that hunted by the Enclave. So I think that there are a group of wizards trying to capture me for whatever purpose that may be. And any time that I bring that into the story, or the narrator would, I can mark improve. And when I get 3 improves, I can add a power tag, or there's some other improvements that you can do as well. So then I have to choose a quest for the theme. An attitude towards human beings with whom you have a history, an aspiration to understand where you came from, your place, or your destiny, a necessity or proclivity of your kind, such as carousing, drinking blood, or gathering magical powers. I think that I am driven to understand my past. That's my quest. So anytime that I make choices in a story that further that, I get to mark a milestone. And anytime I have an opportunity to discover more about my past and I choose not to, I have to mark an abandon. So if I get 3 milestones, then I can transform my theme card into a more developed version of itself. If I mark 3 abandons, then I have to throw away this theme card. I can keep some parts of it, but the theme card itself would be changed in some major way. And my second theme card is going to be my possessions, and I'm going with an ancient sword for that. I don't know if you can see it on the camera here, but my buddy that painted this did a nice job on his sword, and so I want to make that a part of the story. Now this is an origin level of theme card. So it's not going to be extra powerful, the sword, at least not now. But if I hit 3 milestones, I might transform it into something that is an adventuring theme, or maybe even a greatness theme. There could be more to this sword than I realize. So I started off by asking, what is your most important possession or material resource? And of course I said my ancient sword, so that's answered. Now I have to ask some more power questions. What useful characteristic or feature does it have? What supplemental or related item or set do you possess? What is the most common way you use your possession? What surprising secret or trick does the item have? What situations or conditions was this item designed for? How do you handle, repair, or maintain your possessions? What emotion or memory does this possession evoke in you? How do you keep your possessions safe or concealed? What is the make, style, design, or quality standard of this item? So, with my story in mind, that I don't know where I came from and that I'm trying to discover my past, I think I'm going to go with that. What useful characteristic does it have? It's always sharp. It never dulls. And then what emotion or memory does this possession evoke in you? I think shadows of a swordsmaster, shadows of a swordsman. I think that maybe when I use it, sparks of my past come out and I discover that I have a talent for swordplay. And maybe that is a hint as to what my history holds. So then we're going to develop a weakness tag. So you could choose what is a flaw or downside of my possession, what causes your possession to need repair or maintenance, how do you overuse or abuse your possession, what is beyond the capability or standards of your possession. I think the flaw is that it burns for battle. I think the sword wants to fight, and I think it kind of urges me to do so. Some quest ideas: a routine, ritual, or relationship you must maintain to keep your possessions, a goal or activity the item inspires you to engage in, an aim to improve your possessions to obtain better versions of them. Okay, I think we've kind of answered that with the negative tag, and so I think I'm going to say that unquenched battle lust. The sword wants to fight. And for my next theme card, I'm going to go with a companion, and I'm calling him Bones. So Bones I chose because I had another nicely painted mini by my same buddy that painted the other one. I thought they'd go together nicely. So I've already answered who is regularly at my side supporting me. The questions, the power tag questions. What is your companion's most handy quality or skill? How does your companion get you out of a jam? What activity do you and your companion do well together? Where do you and your companion go to relax or get things done? What is your companion's signature move, trick, or ability? What useful item does your companion always have at the ready? How does your companion help you improve or recover, or vice versa? What is a useful physical characteristic of your companion? And what is your companion's outlook or modus operandi? So, I think that I'm going to go with handy quality or skill. And I'm going to call him battle-bred. He just knows what he's doing in a fight. And then I'm going to do what is a useful physical characteristic of your companion, and it's going to be that because he is a skeleton, he will reform after he gets knocked apart. So I'm going to call that Rattlebones. And basically, if he gets shattered, he just kind of reforms over time. So then I'm going to choose a weakness tag. How does your companion get you into trouble or danger? What is your companion's most annoying quality? What causes your companion to become unavailable? In what situation is your companion least useful? I think for the annoying quality, I'm going to go kind of along the same lines as Rattlebones, and I'm going to say noisy. I think that the bones kind of click and make a lot of noise, so not sneaking up on anybody. And then quest ideas. Your commitment to your companion, the connection between you and their well-being, a mission you and your companion seek to accomplish together, your companion's quest, which you have undertaken to keep them by your side. So I don't think that my companion can talk, and I think that maybe I feel responsible for keeping them in one piece, as it were. So I think I'm going to say protective brother relationship. Maybe battle brothers. Okay, so then we'll get to our last one. The other traits that I chose, the other themes rather that I chose, were all very much useful in combat or physical situations. So my last one, I am going to make a personality trait. And I'm going to say that the nameless one has legendary focus. So with that, the power tags, what is a specific or common way you put this trait to use? How is this trait helping keep you safe? What item or ally helps you get the most out of your traits? What can you do that only those with this trait can do? In which situation is this trait especially useful to you? What skill have you developed to make the most of this gift? What do you notice, sense, or understand that most other people cannot? And how can you perform, show off, or be creative with your trait? How do you hide this trait when you need to? So, I think that because I am so focused on finding out my history, that able to just kind of zone in and really catch all of the details around me. And so I think that I'm going to put down attentive for one of my power tags. That is a common way to put that trait to use. And then, or it could also have been how to help keep me safe. And then I'm going to say probably keen eyes. I think that maybe whatever it is that animates the golem also gives him very keen eyesight. So then weakness tags. What happens when you overuse your trait? Who around you resents, covets, or mocks your trait? What is the most obvious vulnerability or misuse of this trait? When is your trait utterly useless? I'm going to put blinders. I think that once I zone in on something, then I forget about everything else. So kind of makes me a one-track mind, and I think that makes sense. So let's go with quest ideas, a belief you developed through trusting and using your trait, a behavior you adopted to emphasize or downplay your trait, a goal relating to understanding the sources of your power or growing your abilities. So obviously the last one would go with my driven to understand my past from my first card, but I want this to be different so I don't get to mark milestones on everything at the same time. So I'm going to say that my quest here, as it were, is I believe that nothing gets past me. That's not necessarily true, but that is the belief. And so when that is confirmed, I get to mark a milestone. And when it is disproven, I have to mark an abandon. So that is a character in Legend in the Mist. Now, the good and the bad. First, the good. Number 1, flexible. Like Swayed, Fate, and Powered by the Apocalypse, this system can be used for anything you can imagine. There will be much less work in adapting games for this system than the systems that I mentioned just before. That's because this system, the mechanics, really don't care about the setting. It's all based on the language that you use and the tags that you establish. So there are mechanics in the system to cover everything that you're going to need, but they aren't going to change from setting to setting. That makes this the ideal game to play varied systems. Number 2, great solo tools. It was very clear that this was designed from the ground up with solo in mind, as the book talks about the solo play throughout. The adventure gives examples on how to use it for solo play. Character design talks about how you would do this differently for solo play. The tutorial is a solo play experience. I love this. It also talks about playing it co-op, which I am currently doing with my One Ring campaign. If that campaign ever falters, this might be a system that I would consider for a different co-op campaign, and could even play it in Middle-earth, because this works for virtually any setting. Love the solo tools, very thorough. For a first endeavor in the solo world, as far as I'm aware, Son of Oak hit it out of the park. Number 3, design. The teach, the layout, the examples, the references, everything is in order here. The book may look a little bit intimidating here, 600 pages between the action grimoire and the player and narrator books, but keep in mind, because I sleeved it, and I'm using a little bit heavier paper, and it's in a binder, it looks a little bit bigger than what it is, and after you learn the rules, you're basically going to be using the In a Nutshell 2-pager, and then you'll use this as a reference guide. It's not going to be referred to constantly, but when you need it, everything is set up nicely, and you're going to find what you're looking for. Now the bad. Number 1, analysis paralysis. Anything is possible, which means that players that have trouble making a decision are going to struggle sometimes here. The examples help to overcome this, but it is going to be something that you are going to have to be proactive in getting ahead of as a game master if you know you have players that struggle to make decisions, because they can do anything they can imagine. Number 2, rife for abuse. Power gamers are going to justify tags for things that were probably not intended. They're also going to want to have all of their theme books be greatness theme books instead of origin or adventuring theme books. The system is designed so that the table and the narrator are the police of this. It's what works at your table. If you want to allow it to happen, that's fine. If you want to enforce some restrictions, that's fine too. But it's on the table and the narrator to do so, as the system leaves it wide open. Number 3, dashed expectations. I could see that there are going to be some players that go through the free tutorial comic book play, and they're going to think that all of the solo play is going to look like that. And they're going to be disappointed because it is a traditional solo play RPG experience. I do hope that Son of Oak considers doing more comic book style solo play adventures. That would be fantastic. But just know that if that is the aspect of the solo play that you enjoy, that's not what the solo play is actually going to be when you get the book. That's just the tutorial, guys. Summary. Legend in the Mist earned its place as the most anticipated game of the year, even if I only recently found out that it existed. This game can be whatever you need it to be, placing it in the good company of Suede, Fate, and other flexible systems. But it goes a step further by removing stats altogether. For an old guy like me, that might feel like a bridge too far. Except when I remember in original D&D, stats didn't do a whole lot anyway. In that game, like this one, players survived on their wits, not their character sheet. This is where this decidedly modern game will win some old guys like me. Honestly, just in the core rules, you have all you need to visit your favorite Keep on the Borderlands, travel to that isle that you've been dreading, or attend a dinner with your favorite vampire beyond the mists. This definitely gets the Books, Bricks, and Boards seal of approval. Look at those absolute legends. Keith, Simone, Dengar the Mighty, Joke, Blue Rose Lion, Agile Monk, Bjorn, and Mike the Hammer. Special thanks to I Am Not Tim, Aceen Dean, and Steve Grodzicki. So there it is. That's my review of Legend in the Mist. I hope by now you've figured out whether it's for you. I don't think it's going to be for everybody. Some folks are going to balk at the fact that it has no stats, that it's very narrative based, and that it is just so different from everything else they played. But for those that are willing to try something new, or somebody that has enjoyed Powered by the Apocalypse or Fate-based games, I think this might be just the game that you've been looking for. I've been Justin, and this has been Books, Bricks, and Boards. Thanks for joining me. Good gaming, and God bless.